In June 2019, a construction crew working on the renovation of Caesars Palace North Tower made a discovery that would solve one of Las Vegas's most perplexing mysteries. Behind a false wall in what was supposed to be a maintenance area adjacent to room 1847, workers found personal belongings that had been sealed away for 32 years. The foreman immediately called the police. What investigators uncovered next would reveal a story of greed, deception, and a honeymoon that ended in tragedy. Before we begin the story, write in the comments which city you're from. We're very interested to know where you're watching our video from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your rating. The items found behind that wall belong to Michael and Sarah Brennan, newlyweds from Ohio, who had checked into Caesars Palace on June 12, 1987, for what should have been the trip of a lifetime. Michael was 28, an insurance adjuster known for his attention to detail. Sarah, 26, taught third grade at a local elementary school. Friends described them as the perfect couple, practical, in love, and excited about their future together. They had saved for 2 years for this honeymoon, choosing Las Vegas for its excitement and glamour. The couple had arrived at McCarran Airport on a Friday afternoon, full of anticipation. The taxi driver who took them to the hotel later recalled how they couldn't stop talking about all the shows they planned to see. Sarah had a list of restaurants she wanted to try. Michael was interested in playing some poker, though friends confirmed he was never much of a gambler back home. They were ordinary people looking forward to an extraordinary week. Their room at Caesars Palace was on the 18th floor of the North Tower, with a view of the Strip that Sarah had specifically requested. The bellhop who helped with their luggage remembered them as generous tippers who seemed genuinely happy. They unpacked methodically, hanging their clothes in the closet, arranging toiletries in the bathroom. Sarah placed a photo of their wedding day on the nightstand. These details would become significant later when investigators tried to understand what happened. For the first 3 days, everything appeared normal. Hotel records showed they attended a magic show on Saturday night. Restaurant receipts indicated they had dinner at the hotel's steakhouse on Sunday. Security footage from that era, though grainy, captured them walking through the casino, holding hands, stopping occasionally to watch others play. Michael tried his luck at the blackjack tables, winning about $300 on his first night. Sarah played the slot machines, laughing when she won $20 in quarters. On Monday, June 15, 1987, something changed. The breakfast buffet staff remembered seeing them around 9:15 that morning. Michael seemed excited, mentioning to their server that he had been invited to a special poker game that evening. Sarah appeared less enthusiastic, suggesting they might skip it and see another show instead. The server recalled Michael reassuring his wife that it would just be for a few hours, that this was a unique opportunity to play with some serious players. Vincent Russo ran one of several underground poker games that operated in Las Vegas during the 1980s. These games existed in the shadows of the legitimate casinos, attracting high rollers who wanted bigger stakes and fewer rules. Russo, 45 years old at the time, had a reputation for running clean games, but also for being unforgiving when it came to debts. His operation was known to law enforcement, but as long as things stayed relatively quiet, authorities looked the other way. How Michael Brennan, a small-town insurance adjuster, received an invitation to Russo's game remains unclear. Some speculated that his unexpected winning streak at the official tables caught someone's attention. Others suggested he might have overheard conversations and expressed interest. What is known is that by Monday afternoon, Michael had withdrawn $8,000 from various ATMs around the casino. The withdrawal pattern was unusual: 16 separate transactions of $500 each, all within a 10-minute window, starting at 7:45 p.m. Tony Martinez served as the security chief for Caesars Palace in 1987. At 38, he had worked his way up from a floor guard to a position of considerable responsibility. Martinez knew about the underground games. It was impossible not to in his position, but maintained that the hotel had no official knowledge of such activities. When questioned years later, Martinez would insist that Michael and Sarah Brennan were just another couple who probably decided to leave Vegas early after losing too much money. The third person who would become central to this story was Frank Delacourt, 52, a floor manager who had been with Caesars Palace since it opened. Delacourt was known as a company man, someone who understood that the hotel's reputation was everything. He worked long hours, often staying late to handle problems that arose. His personnel file showed he was working overtime the night of June 15th, though his specific duties that evening were never clearly documented. Jenny Wu, the housekeeping supervisor, was the first to raise concerns about the Brennans. On June 18th, after seeing a Do Not Disturb sign on room 1847 for 2 consecutive days, she used her passkey to check on the room. The scene she found was puzzling. The bed was still made. Clothes hung in the closet. Toiletries remained arranged on the bathroom counter. The wedding photo still sat on the nightstand. But Michael and Sarah were gone. Wu immediately reported the situation to Frank Delacourt, who was on duty that morning. Delacourt accompanied Wu back to the room, confirming that the couple appeared to have vanished while leaving everything behind. He noted that their suitcases were still in the closet, their plane tickets home were on the dresser, and Sarah's purse was on the chair by the window. Delacourt said he would handle the situation and instructed Wu to leave the room untouched. What happened next would only come to light decades later. Hotel records showed that Michael and Sarah Brennan had officially checked out on June 16th at 3 p.m. The checkout was processed in the system, their room charges settled with the credit card on file. Yet Jenny Wu's discovery on June 18th proved they never physically left. Their rental car remained in the parking garage for 3 more days before being towed. No one could explain the discrepancy. The original investigation in 1987 was surprisingly brief. Local police interviewed hotel staff and reviewed available evidence, but with an official checkout record and no signs of foul play in the room, they had little to pursue. The prevailing theory was that the couple had gotten into debt, possibly to Russo's operation, and had fled Las Vegas in a hurry. The fact that they left their belongings behind was unusual, but not unheard of. Cases like this happened occasionally in Vegas. Vincent Russo was questioned, but denied ever meeting Michael Brennan. He claimed to have been at his apartment the entire night of June 15th, watching television with his girlfriend. Tony Martinez provided security logs showing nothing unusual that evening, though he mentioned seeing the couple arguing in the hallway around 10 p.m., suggesting marital problems might have been a factor. Frank Delacourt was particularly helpful, providing detailed notes about the discovery of the abandoned room and his efforts to locate the missing couple. The case went cold quickly. The Brennans' families hired a private investigator who spent 6 months in Las Vegas, but found no new leads. Michael's parents believed something terrible had happened. Sarah's family held out hope that the couple had simply started a new life somewhere. The uncertainty was agonizing. Birthdays passed, anniversaries came and went, and still there was no word. During those first days of the investigation, one detail was overlooked. Frank Delacourt's overtime logs showed he had clocked significant extra hours during the week of June 15th. This wasn't unusual in itself. Floor managers often worked long shifts. But the pattern was interesting. Delacourt was present during every key moment, when Michael made his ATM withdrawals, when the couple supposedly checked out, and when their room was discovered abandoned. At the time, this seemed like the dedication of a conscientious employee. The 2019 discovery behind the wall changed everything. Along with personal effects, investigators found documents that had been hidden for decades. Among them was an IOU for $200,000, bearing what appeared to be Michael Brennan's signature. The document was dated June 15, 1987, the night the couple disappeared. This discovery immediately shifted focus to Vincent Russo and his underground gambling operation. Forensic accountants examining the IOU noticed several irregularities. The signature, while similar to Michael's, showed signs of stress, shaky lines suggesting the writer's hand was unsteady. Handwriting experts would later determine it was likely signed under duress. The amount itself raised questions. How could an insurance adjuster who brought $8,000 to a game end up owing $200,000? Even in high-stakes poker, losing that much that quickly seemed improbable. Investigators reopened the case with new technology unavailable in 1987. Digital enhancement of old security footage revealed details previously invisible. The tape from June 15th showed Michael at the ATM as reported, but careful analysis revealed something else, a figure standing just outside the camera's range, apparently watching him. The build and posture suggested someone familiar with the casino's blind spots, someone who knew exactly where to stand to avoid being recorded. The security footage from later that evening was particularly interesting. The period between 11:30 p.m. and 2 a.m. was missing, officially listed as a technical malfunction. However, examination of the tape storage log showed this was the only gap in recordings for the entire month of June 1987. The precision of this deletion suggested insider knowledge of the hotel's security systems. Tony Martinez, now 70 and living in retirement in Arizona, was brought in for questioning. His story had changed little over the decades. He maintained that he saw the couple arguing in the hallway around 10 p.m., though he couldn't explain why no other witnesses corroborated this sighting. When pressed about the missing security footage, Martinez suggested it was likely a genuine technical issue. The old systems were notoriously unreliable. However, investigators discovered that Martinez's keycard had been used to access the North Tower maintenance area at 11:28 p.m. on June 15th. This was highly unusual, as security chiefs rarely entered maintenance zones, especially late at night. When confronted with this evidence, Martinez seemed genuinely confused. He insisted he was in the security office at that time, reviewing schedules for the next day. Phone records partially supported his claim. A call was made from the security office phone at 11:35 p.m. Vincent Russo, now in his late 70s, was also questioned again. Years had softened his tough exterior, and he was more forthcoming about his operations in the 1980s. Russo admitted that Michael Brennan had indeed attended his game on June 15th. According to Russo, Michael had played poorly, losing his initial $8,000 quickly. The young man had asked for credit, which Russo claimed to have denied. Russo insisted Michael left the game around 11 p.m., upset but unharmed. 3 other players from that night's game were tracked down and interviewed. Their stories generally aligned with Russo's account. Michael had played aggressively, trying to bluff his way through hands he shouldn't have played. One player remembered Michael mentioning his wife several times, saying she would be upset if she knew how much he was risking. Another recalled Michael leaving abruptly after his final loss, muttering something about needing to explain things to Sarah. But the IOU complicated Russo's narrative. If he hadn't extended credit to Michael, how did this document come to exist? Russo examined the paper and declared it a forgery. He pointed out that his legitimate IOUs used different paper, different wording, and always included witness signatures. This document had none of those characteristics. Someone had created a false debt document, but why? Frank Delacourt had passed away in 2008, but investigators obtained his personal effects from his estate. Among his papers, they found detailed notes about the Brennan case, far more extensive than his official reports. Delacourt had documented every conversation, every observation, with an obsessive attention to detail. One entry, dated June 20th, 1987, was particularly intriguing. The matter has been contained. Hotel's reputation intact. Investigators also discovered that Delacourt had received a significant promotion just weeks after the Brennans disappeared. He was moved to a newly created position with a substantial salary increase. The timing could have been coincidental, but it raised questions about what services might have earned such a reward. The investigation took an unexpected turn when forensic accountants examining Caesars Palace records from 1987 discovered discrepancies in the hotel's books. Someone had been systematically embezzling money using a complex scheme involving phantom maintenance charges and inflated vendor payments. The amounts were significant, nearly $3 million over 5 years. The scheme was sophisticated enough that it had gone undetected during regular audits. Michael Brennan's profession as an insurance adjuster meant he was trained to spot financial irregularities. His attention to detail, which friends and family often mentioned, would have made him particularly adept at noticing patterns others might miss. If he had somehow stumbled upon evidence of embezzlement during his stay, it would have put him in a dangerous position. Jenny Wu, now retired and living in California, provided crucial testimony when interviewed again. She remembered Frank Delacourt's behavior after discovering the abandoned room as oddly calm. Most managers would have been concerned about potential liability or eager to investigate. Delacourt had simply taken control, insisting he would handle everything personally. Wu also recalled that Delacourt had access to master override codes for the keycard system, something only a handful of employees possessed. The North Tower renovation permits from 1987 revealed another crucial detail. Just 3 days after the Brennans disappeared, emergency maintenance work was authorized for the area adjacent to room 1847. The work order, signed by Frank Delacourt, cited structural concerns requiring immediate attention. The construction crew sealed off a section of the maintenance area with a new wall, supposedly to prevent water damage. The work was completed quickly, without the usual inspections. Phone records from June 15th provided additional context. A call was made from room 1847 to the hotel's internal management line at 10:47 p.m. The call lasted 12 minutes. Then, at 11:02 p.m., another call was placed, this time to the front desk, lasting just 30 seconds. The content of these calls was never documented, but the timing suggested Michael might have been trying to report something he had discovered. Sarah Brennan's family had kept her diary from the months before the honeymoon. In it, she expressed excitement about the trip, but also concern about Michael's recent stress at work. She wrote that he had been working on a complex insurance fraud case and was getting good at spotting financial deception. She joked that he was seeing conspiracies everywhere, even in restaurant receipts. This detail took on new significance given what investigators were learning about the hotel's financial irregularities. The digital enhancement of security footage revealed another important detail. At 10:30 p.m. on June 15th, Frank Delacourt's figure could be seen entering the North Tower elevator. This contradicted his original statement that he was in his office handling paperwork until after midnight. The timestamp was clear, and the image, though grainy, was definitely him. He was carrying what appeared to be a briefcase, unusual for routine floor management duties. Bank records showed that Tony Martinez had received several large deposits in the months following June 1987. He explained these as gambling winnings, providing casino records to support his claim. However, investigators noticed that Frank Delacourt had similar deposits during the same period, always just under the reporting threshold. Delacourt's deposits were made in cash at various branches, a pattern consistent with someone trying to avoid detection. As investigators pieced together the timeline, a pattern emerged. Every supposed witness to the Brennans' behavior on June 15th had connections to either Frank Delacourt or the hotel's management structure. The server who heard about the poker game was Delacourt's nephew. The security guard who logged the couple's checkout worked directly under Delacourt. Even the tow truck driver who removed their rental car was a contractor Delacourt frequently hired. The investigation revealed that the underground poker game had indeed taken place and Michael had indeed lost money. But the real story began after he left that game. Security footage showed him returning to the hotel at 11:05 p.m., alone and walking steadily. He didn't appear to be someone who had just lost a fortune. Instead, he looked like someone with a purpose, heading directly to the elevator without stopping at the casino floor. Sarah's parents provided a letter she had written but never sent, found in her childhood desk. Dated June 14, 1987, and written on Caesars Palace stationery, she mentioned that Michael had noticed something odd about their hotel bill. Charges were appearing that they hadn't made, and when he inquired, the staff seemed nervous. She wrote that Michael planned to speak to a manager about it, joking that his insurance adjuster instincts never took a vacation. The breakthrough came when investigators located a retired Caesars Palace accountant named Dorothy Chen. Chen had worked in the hotel's financial department in 1987, but left abruptly that summer. She had remained silent for decades, fearful of potential consequences. But the discovery of the Brennans changed her mind. Chen revealed that she had suspected embezzlement in early 1987 and had been gathering evidence when she was suddenly transferred to a different department. Chen explained the embezzlement scheme in detail. Frank Delacourt had been creating false maintenance work orders, approving payments to shell companies he controlled. The scheme was elegant in its simplicity, small enough amounts to avoid triggering audits, but frequent enough to accumulate millions over time. Chen had documented several suspicious transactions, but was told by management that her concerns were unfounded. After the Brennans disappeared, she was offered a generous severance package to leave quietly. The reconstruction of events began to form a clear picture. On the evening of June 15th, Michael Brennan had discovered something in his hotel bill that didn't add up. His training as an insurance adjuster had taught him to recognize fraudulent patterns. The phantom charges on his bill matched the pattern Chen had identified: maintenance fees that didn't correspond to actual services. Michael had likely recognized this as part of a larger scheme. When Michael called the management office at 10:47 p.m., he reached Frank Delacourt. Investigators theorized that Michael confronted Delacourt with his suspicions, possibly threatening to report the irregularities to authorities. For Delacourt, who had stolen millions and built his entire life on this fraud, exposure would mean not just prison, but complete ruin. The 12-minute call was likely Delacourt trying to convince Michael to stay quiet, possibly offering him money. The second call at 11:02 p.m. to the front desk was probably Michael trying to reach someone else in management, unaware that Delacourt had already instructed the night staff to redirect any concerns from room 1847 directly to him. This isolation of the Brennans from other hotel authorities was crucial to what happened next. Frank Delacourt arrived at room 1847 shortly after 11:15 p.m. The master override access he possessed meant he could enter without the Brennans' permission. What exactly transpired in that room will never be fully known, but investigators believe Delacourt tried one final time to convince the couple to remain silent. When it became clear they wouldn't be swayed, the situation escalated beyond what anyone had intended. The false IOU was Delacourt's attempt to create an alternative narrative. By making it appear that Michael owed money to illegal gamblers, any disappearance could be explained as the couple fleeing debts. Delacourt knew about Rousseau's operation and calculated that suspicion would naturally fall on the underground gambling world. The forged signature was added after the fact, using samples of Michael's handwriting from his hotel registration. Tony Martinez's key card being used at 11:28 p.m. was explained when investigators discovered that Delacourt had access to duplicate key cards for all security personnel. As floor manager, he could create these for emergency situations. By using Martinez's card, Delacourt created a false trail that would implicate the security chief if questions ever arose. Martinez's alleged sighting of the couple arguing was likely a confused memory, possibly of a different couple, that Delacourt encouraged him to connect to the Brennans. The maintenance area adjacent to room 1847 provided Delacourt with a solution to his immediate problem. This space, rarely accessed and scheduled for renovation, could be sealed off without raising suspicions. The work order he filed 3 days later was backdated to make it appear the renovation had been planned weeks in advance. The construction crew, following standard orders, simply walled off the designated area without questioning what was behind it. The checkout record created on June 16th was simple for Delacourt to arrange. With his administrative access, he could process the checkout remotely, making it appear the Brennans had left normally. The charge to their credit card went through automatically. To anyone reviewing records later, it would seem like a routine departure. The abandoned belongings could be explained as items left behind by guests who left in a hurry. Sarah's purse, left behind in the room, contained a small notebook where she had been documenting their honeymoon. The final entry, dated June 15th at 8 p.m., mentioned that Michael was excited about something he had discovered. She wrote that he kept saying this could be important, though she didn't understand what he meant. Her last written words were about hoping he would forget about work and enjoy their remaining days in Vegas. The cover-up required several people to look the other way, though most didn't realize what they were truly concealing. Delacourt convinced hotel management that the Brennans were small-time grifters who had skipped out on debts. He emphasized that pursuing the matter would only bring negative publicity to Caesar's Palace. In an industry where reputation was everything, management was willing to let the matter drop quietly. Vincent Russo, despite his criminal activities, was genuinely innocent of any involvement in the Brennans' disappearance. The attempt to frame him through the forged IOU actually helped investigators understand Delacourt's desperation. Only someone with intimate knowledge of both the hotel's operations and the underground gambling scene could have crafted such a plausible false narrative. Years after the events, several employees remembered Frank Delacourt's behavior changing after June 1987. He became more paranoid, more controlling. He worked even longer hours, as if afraid to leave the hotel unattended. Some attributed this to dedication, but investigators recognized it as the behavior of someone constantly managing a cover-up, ensuring no loose ends emerged. The promotion Delacourt received weeks after the disappearance was his reward for handling a difficult situation. Upper management, believing he had protected the hotel from scandal involving deadbeat gamblers, showed their appreciation. They had no idea they were rewarding him for covering up his own crimes. The irony was that Delacourt's embezzlement continued for 3 more years before he quietly retired with full benefits. Dorothy Chen's testimony included one more crucial detail. She had seen Delacourt on the morning of June 16th, and he had been unusually interested in her work, specifically asking about audit schedules and whether any external reviews were planned. At the time, she thought he was just being thorough. Now she understood he was making sure his embezzlement wouldn't be discovered during any investigation into the Brennans. The forensic examination of the sealed maintenance area in 2019 provided the physical evidence that confirmed investigators' theories. The space had been hastily closed off, with personal effects scattered as if left in a hurry. The Brennans' wedding rings were found, still in the small box Sarah had kept them in when not wearing them. Michael's wallet was there, too, still containing his driver's license and the business card of an FBI agent who specialized in financial crimes, a card he had likely planned to use. In 2020, 33 years after Michael and Sarah Brennan vanished from Caesar's Palace, the truth was finally revealed to the public. Frank Delacourt, having died 12 years earlier, would never face justice for his crimes. But the investigation cleared Vincent Russo of any involvement and revealed Tony Martinez as another victim of Delacourt's manipulation. The case was officially closed with the determination that the Brennans had been victims of a crime committed by someone they trusted to help them. The Brennan families finally had answers, though not the ones they had hoped for during 3 decades of uncertainty. Michael's parents had been right that something terrible had happened. Sarah's family's hope that the couple had started a new life somewhere was tragically misplaced. But there was some comfort in knowing the truth, in understanding that Michael and Sarah had tried to do the right thing when they discovered criminal activity. The case changed how Las Vegas hotels handle missing person reports and financial auditing. The Nevada Gaming Commission implemented new regulations requiring external audits and multiple oversight levels for financial transactions. The Brennan case became a cautionary tale about how institutional reputation management can sometimes enable individual crimes. The North Tower of Caesar's Palace was eventually demolished as planned, but not before a memorial plaque was installed in the lobby. It reads simply, "In memory of Michael and Sarah Brennan, who deserved better." Their story serves as a reminder that in a city built on chance and fortune, the most dangerous gambles are sometimes the ones that happen off the casino floor. Vincent Russo, in his final interview before his death in 2021, reflected on how his criminal reputation had made him the perfect scapegoat. He expressed sympathy for the Brennans, noting that they were innocent people caught in someone else's web of deception. He donated money to establish a scholarship in their names at Sarah's former elementary school, a gesture that her family said would have meant everything to her. The discovery behind that wall in 2019 solved more than just a missing persons case. It revealed how power and position could be abused, how institutional blind spots could be exploited, and how 2 young people's courage to speak up about wrongdoing had been silenced by someone they should have been able to trust. Michael and Sarah Brennan had come to Las Vegas for a honeymoon adventure. Instead, they became part of the city's darkest history. The investigation concluded that Frank Delacourt had acted alone in the immediate events of June 15, 1987, though his position within the hotel's hierarchy had enabled both his embezzlement and his cover-up. The $3 million he stole was never recovered, likely hidden in offshore accounts or spent over his remaining years. But the true cost of his crimes was measured not in money, but in the lives of 2 young people who had their entire future stolen from them. Today, room 1847 no longer exists, demolished along with the rest of the North Tower. But the story of what happened there serves as a powerful reminder. In their final hours, Michael and Sarah Brennan stood up to corruption and refused to be silenced, even when threatened. They paid the ultimate price for their integrity, but their story, finally told, ensures that Frank Delacourt's perfect crime was ultimately exposed. The last piece of evidence discovered was a postcard Sarah had written but never sent. It was addressed to her sister and contained a simple message: "Vegas is everything we imagined and more." Michael is being his usual analytical self, finding mysteries everywhere. I love him for it, though. Home soon with stories to tell. Those stories took 32 years to finally be told, but they revealed a truth that honored the memory of 2 people who deserved so much more than the hand they were dealt in a city where the house always wins.